Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layout. Welcome back to day number 20 of March Madness. Today's page map sketch comes from January of 2021. I pulled out this Carta collection called A Wonderful Christmas. I actually just picked this up from the Echo Park warehouse sale, and you can see here all of the pieces that I picked up. I was able to get the frames and tags, the adhesive brads, the puffy stickers, and 2 of the chipboard pieces. I also picked up the coordinating cardstock that comes with it. Carta is such a thick paper. I love using their paper because it's super thick, but I do struggle sometimes, especially when I have a ton of layers. If you are just getting into scrapbooking, I highly recommend Echo Park and their warehouse sale because you can get some really great deals. You can get an entire collection at a pretty reasonable price. The collection pack that comes with the paper and just the sticker sheet is usually like $7 or $8, and then you can get the embellishment pieces for $2 or $3. So you can get an entire collection with all the different pieces for $20 or $30, and you can get a lot of layouts with those. There are some downsides to Echo Park and Carta in regards to their embellishment pieces, but I feel like that is more of my style and my preference in regards to those downsides. But I still recommend them, especially for newer scrapbookers, because there is just so much that you can get for such a reasonable price. I did want to map my photos on this lighter green, which is also what I'm going to use as my background piece. So I did start out with adding the 2 photos that are going to be on the right hand side of the layout down directly to my background piece. And then I pulled out my layering guides to create a layer around the photos. I do have a tutorial on this layering guide, and I will link it here for you guys if you would like to check it out on how to use these things. I love them. I think that it provides the perfect border around your photos or anything else that you're cutting out. This particular sketch calls for a ton of layers. This collection had a lot of busy prints, but then also a lot of nice B-sides as well. I looked through the paper a lot. I think the biggest issue that I was having was that I had chosen that lighter green as my background, and because I'm so used to using white, I was struggling with what color I could add next to that lighter green. I did end up deciding on these red snowflakes, which I think are really pretty. So I'm going to pull out my T-square ruler and measure the sides to make sure that I have an even border around the photos. Because this was such an awkward size photo, I had trimmed down the photos just a little bit. It made it really difficult to measure it out. I couldn't just measure it from the top and bottom. I actually had to use a T-square ruler and my pencil to get it all straight. Finally got it all cut out, and then I needed another layer, which I didn't think this through because I probably should have used the green behind the photos and then used the red as my background. But I actually end up using this really dark green, and I do like the contrast of that red with the dark green and then the lighter green in the background. So as I'm getting this mat down, let me just tell you about these photos. At Disney Springs, there is a Disney PhotoPass Studio, and you can go in and take photos. If you have the PhotoPass, it's included with your PhotoPass. If you don't, you can purchase the photos. But they offer family portraits with fun props and green screen backgrounds. On this particular evening, my friend Jennifer and I were at Disney Springs to see the Christmas tree, so it's at Christmas time, and she was like, you know what we should do? We should go into the photo studio and do those awkward family photos that everybody was talking about. This was like a huge craze a couple of years ago, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So obviously the setup that they had and the backdrops were Christmas related. It was like a truck, and in the truck it had a Christmas tree and some pillows and things like that. It was definitely the 90s JCPenney's Sears vibe, where you had the backdrop and then you had that one prop that you would sit on. This one was a bench that had a red checkered blanket on it. But it was so much fun, and we told the photographer that that's what we were doing, was the awkward family photos, and they just played into it and told us a bunch of different poses to try, and we just had so much fun with it. So I am going to have the 3 photos on the left hand side, but I decided that the photos from the sketch were way too small. I moved my photos up to a 4x4, which it's going to cause me a lot of issues here in a little bit. But at this point right now, I'm going to add this reef paper to the top and bottom. I decided to add 1 row of the reefs at the top and 2 rows of the reefs at the bottom, which that to take me a little bit to get those down as well, because I needed to make sure that I cut them with just 2 rows or 1 row. So it wasn't like I was cutting out 1 inch or 2 inch. Once I get that paper all cut out, then I go ahead and adhere my 3 photos down. And for whatever reason, the photos weren't straight. I struggled with it a lot. So I did have to pull it up and pull it back down. And then I remembered that the reason that the photos weren't the same size was because I had pulled up the photo from the right-hand side, because I originally thought that I was going to have a 4x6 over on the right, but then I was like, no, I really want to have this 4x6 on the right-hand side, but I had trimmed it down. So then I had to cut off like a 1/4 of an inch from the other 2 photos to get all of the photos down in the same size. And then I was able to get the top reef down. I then pulled out my trimmer and just trimmed off the edge because there was a little bit hanging off. I then wanted to make sure that the reef paper lined up because I was only going to have a little piece on the right hand side of the layout. So I just used my trimmer to trim up the edge, and it was pretty easy to line up since it was a circle pattern. The bottom one, I did have to cut it off just a little bit so that the reef lined up perfectly. But for the top one, it actually ended at the edge of the reef. So that one was a little bit easier to line up because I just had to make sure that I had enough white space on the edge of the reef. So now it looks like that reef paper is continuous across both layouts. Now this is where my struggles begin, because I didn't pay attention to the fact that I probably should have cut this entire reef paper out for the right hand side of the layout, and I didn't have enough scraps to put it back together. So then I started to look through the cards, and I was like, well, I'll just take another 4x4 card and add it to the layout as well. But I really liked this particular 4x4 card. I like the fact that it was red. It looked nice with the red snowflakes on the right hand side. So I go ahead and trim it out. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the card down on the layout, and I'm going to bring back my mat, and I realize that that's not going to work. The words go out too far, and I have this big hole in the center of my layout that I need to cover up. So I thought maybe I'll trim down the 4x4 card. Still didn't work. So then I turned to the frames and tags, trying to find something that would work there, and I found this tag that I added, and I was like, oh, that might work, because then I can just add a piece of pattern paper to the back of it and it'll be fine. And I did need to add another pattern paper around the outside edge, because if you take a look at the sketch, there's this other pattern that's on the right hand side, and then it kind of comes over a little bit on the left hand side. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try this red. Didn't like that. Then I thought, well, maybe I'll try this really busy pattern because it's not going to be seen very much, and I like the florals in it. So I go ahead and cut it out and adhere it down to the very far right hand side of the layout. I did also pull out my corner rounder to round the edges, just to give it a little bit of softer look, since I do have so many patterns going on here. And then I'm going to start to work on the left hand side of the right hand side of the layout and get that down. And I will tell you that the entire time that I'm working this, I don't like it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Maybe if I just keep going, I trust the process, it's gonna look fine. But the biggest issue that I don't like is the fact that both of those pattern papers, the white with the floral and the white with the reefs, have a white background, and so they don't contrast enough with each other. But I keep going and I keep adding it down, and then I'm gonna add a piece in the center, and I knew that I was gonna be covering up a majority of that paper with the tag, but then when I cut it to trim it down, I made it too short. And I was like, this is just not my day. So I tried to cut it in half, thinking maybe that would work, and I'd go ahead and get all of that down. And I'm like, okay, maybe if I put the photo back on top of it, it'll look nice. I'm gonna go ahead and adhere the photo mat down. And I will tell you that I was like, nope, I just don't like it. I'm trying to make it work. I'm trying to be like, okay, it'll be okay. I continue working through it, putting down my washi tape on the back, thinking, this will be okay. And I was like, let me take a break. I'm gonna step away, because I was so frustrated. And I came back and I was like, okay, I don't like it. So let's try something else. So then I pulled out the 3x4 cards and I was like, maybe I can make a 3x4 card work. Then I realized that my mat wasn't straight. So I had to pull that up, pull out my T-square ruler and get that down straight. And honestly, at this point, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, I am still kind of frustrated, but I'm working on all the other things so that I can figure this out. I look through all of the 3x4 cards. I finally land on this 3x4 card here that says Jingle All the Way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. And even though there's a truck in the background, I felt like it went really well with these photos. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out, and I decided that I would have it overlap the darker green pattern paper. I absolutely could have done that with the red 4x4, but in that moment I was so frustrated that my brain wasn't working and I definitely wasn't computing that that would work. So by stepping away and coming back, I realized, hey, this will work and I can get everything down. I then realized that the white floral paper wasn't supposed to go to the edge, like it's supposed to have like a small green border so that it flows nicely over into the left-hand side of the layout. So I do end up pulling up that paper and then adding it back down by moving it over just like a 1/2 of an inch. But I do have to do it on the top and bottom. I'm really glad that my photos were matted on several cardstocks because it did make it easy to pull those pieces up since I had to do it several times. All right, so let me know in the comments below. Have you guys ever done some awkward family photos? Like I said, I know this trend was a couple of years ago, but we had so much fun doing these photos and I'm so glad that I have them. The photo of me looking up at her and then the photo of me carrying her is just my favorite photos. So much fun. I did pull out this plaid and I did go ahead and add the border to it, and I was gonna add it down. I moved it around a lot, but I just wasn't liking it. I think one of the things that I really struggle with in regards to Echo Park and Carta items is that their prints are so large. I love that plaid, but I wish that it was a quarter of the size that it is. It's just so large. So I decided to take a break from that, and I have been adding just a little bit of stitching. I definitely have the stitching bug, but I just don't have a lot of time to be doing stitching. So I've been adding just like single rows to my layouts just to give me a little bit of stitching and hopefully get through that bug. I'm almost done with these daily layouts, and then I can get back into some really big stitching projects because I think that's what's coming next for me. And then I'm going to start to work on the embellishments. I did pull out the chipboard accent pieces and I added a sleigh over to the right that has a Christmas tree in it. And I knew I wanted my title to be Awkward Christmas Photos, so I pulled out this word Christmas, and then I pulled out these alpha stickers from Freckled Fawn to spell out the word awkward, but I wasn't liking the way that it was nestling in the word Christmas. I do move it around a lot. I tried to pull out the sticker sheet, trying to see if I could find something there, and then I decided to pull out all of my Echo Park Christmas stickers. I have all of my Echo Park Christmas stickers and chipboard pieces together because it just makes it so much easier to go through. Their colors always are the same, especially with this particular Christmas set. They do the different shades of reds and different shades of green in a ton of different collections, and so when I am really kind of out of the paper and I'm done with it, I'll maybe donate the paper, but I'll hang on to the stickers because I know that I can use them in other layouts. So that's why I started to pull those out. I found these black stickers, which I have used these a ton, and added the word photos down, and then I found this chipboard tag that says Christmas, and I liked that so much better. I did have to use my X-Acto knife to trim off some of the pieces. These particular chipboard pieces, this is actually from this collection, they do not have adhesive on the back, so that was very interesting. I think that that's maybe a way that they're going, like they're not putting adhesive on the back of them because they don't stick anyway, so I had to add some liquid adhesive to it. And then I'm going to spell out the word awkward in this font from Freckled Fawn, and I feel like it has a whimsical vibe to that font, which I think plays well into the word awkward. So my title is going to be Awkward Christmas Photos, and then I'm going to start to build up my other two clusters. I'm going to have one on the far right hand side and one on the left hand side. I did pull out this frame that says Joy, and I'm going to add a bunch of different items to that to fill in the frame so you won't even be able to tell that it was a frame when I'm finished with it. I thought about adding that floral piece which matches the paper that's on the right hand side, but then I found a wreath and I liked that a lot better. So I'm adding the wreath as well as the chipboard Santa down. And then I'm trying to find a piece that I can cover up the top part of the frame. And I look through the frames and tags and I was able to find this darker green tag that has a fireplace on it with a mantle. And there's some picture frames that say like fa la la la, and it has a Christmas tree and a nutcracker on it. So I added that to the top, and that kind of ties in the entire frame. So you can't even see the inner sides of the frame. You just really see the red border around all of the edges. And then those 3 clusters in the center, and then the word joy at the bottom. And I really like the way that that cluster came together. And I think I mentioned it in a video before where I struggle sometimes with frames. But then after I did that voiceover, I was like, maybe I should try to use some more frames in different ways and challenge myself. So I'm glad that I was able to challenge myself with this one and actually build up a pretty nice cluster over there. I then added some jute twine to my tag as well as my glue dots to the jute twine so that it would stay in place. Over on the far right hand side, I'm going to start to build up that cluster. I started out with that bingo card that has Mary at the top. It was a little large, so I did cut off the edge. I'm going to add the bingo card down as well as the chipboard sled, and it has a little Christmas tree in it as well. And then I felt like there was just an abrupt end to that bingo card. So I decided to pull out this tag that says naughty or nice with a question mark, which I thought played really well into these funny photos. I then added a little lantern to that cluster as well as a snowflake. And then over on the left hand side, I felt like Santa needed a stocking, so I went ahead and added that. And then up next to my title, I felt like I needed a lantern up there as well to match the cluster that's in the far right. I like to go from large to small when I'm adding my embellishments and filling in any of the holes. I did have a circle sticker that had a snowflake, but it wasn't large enough because there was some trap space in there. But then I did find another Santa sticker, so I went ahead and added that. And then I'm just adding some snowflake stickers as well as chipboard pieces to each one of the clusters. And then down at the bottom, I did find a little tag that says season greetings. And I felt like that tied the wreath on the left-hand side and the stocking on the right-hand side of that cluster together. I also wanted to create a small cluster up by the photos on the right. So I do have the word season, and then I added a small little Christmas tree. I do add that up on foam adhesive. And then I just added a little ornament. I also have the adhesive brads, so I pulled those out and was adding them to each one of the clusters. And then I pulled out my color boxes in red, green, and black and added some enamel dots to each one of the clusters. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did do my journaling offline, and it says, Jennifer and I made the most of the Christmas backdrop and the playful props at Disney Springs PhotoPass Studio to capture some delightfully awkward friends photos. We had an absolute blast trying out all of the silly poses. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.